I swear to God, when I'm going to talk about, make a video that's anyway important or, controversial, there's always a problem with the internet or phone or something. It'd make you half paranoid. But anyway, this has drove me mad just getting this one up. I want to talk about Ireland and the European Union and why we should leave. Now, I know this debate has been going on in this country for a while around the concept of like Ireland post-Brexit and Irexit and all this stuff. Now, I've listened to a lot of stuff to do with it, and a lot of it is emotive. A lot of it is, it doesn't really, we should just leave, and that's the end of it. You don't leave a marriage just like that. You have legal things to deal with. Now, I read this book by Cormac Lucy from 2014 called Plan B, How Leaving the Euro Can Save Ireland. Now, the book is very, very good, and it deals basically with the concept of the Eurozone currency more so than the European Union. Remember, the European Union was founded as a trading bloc initially. That's what they told us, although lots of people warned us that it wasn't going to be that. And then suddenly you had the Maastricht Treaty, and the next thing you know, we're in the United States of Europe. And now this is having things like social and military implications as well. Now, Ireland's debt is about 125% of GDP. Roughly around that, which is pretty bad. Now, the worst thing that you can happen to a country is to default. When you default on your debts, I hear people say things like, "Oh, well, we just suggest say fuck the debt and default on it." That's a terrible thing to do. I'll tell you why. Because the banks will come after you in ways you would not imagine. When Argentina defaulted on its debts, a bank actually seized an Argentinian battleship that was on tour in Africa, and just said, "It's ours now. You owe us money. We're taking your battleships." This is what it's like. This is what you go up when you go up against the banks. The exit strategy for Ireland should be to exit the euro first, and then exit the European Union completely. Britain had that advantage anyway. They were still on the pound sterling when they were in the EU, quite rightly, I might add. And so I just thought of what are the arguments against leaving the European Union? There are none. And if you look at the most ardent pro-European Union people in Ireland, they're nearly always government employees. If they're not politicians, they're civil servants. Now, civil servants have done exceptionally well out of the European Union. This is why the Remain thing in Britain, the centre of the whole thing was civil servants. Because there's all kinds of perks involved in being in the European Union. And academics as well. That's what they get to go on these junkets to European universities and study programs. And the Irish ones are the same. They're the same all over Europe. The European Union is kept, its biggest public relations thing is it's kept going by academics and bureaucrats and civil servants who do personally very, very well out of the EU. So you could be a clerk in some civil service office in Cork, and you're told there was a training program in Munich. You're going to stay in Munich for a week in a hotel. Free holiday. And they're all lazy cunts anyway. So they're the ones who are pro-EU. If you take, and they say things like, well, this is what I hear in England. Well, you Irish have done very well from the EU. They built all your motorways. I think the EU built one section of motorway in Ireland. Every other of them, and Ireland's an excellent motorway system now, has been built entirely by Irish taxpayers. So that's a myth that they built all our roads. They built one or two sections of short sections of motorway. The rest was all built by Irish taxpayers. Now, what's the other thing? We'd lose all our trading thing. No, we're in danger of losing that. Remember, the European Union wants a harmonization of taxation. What gives Ireland an advantage in terms of foreign direct investment is low corporate tax. They want to stop that. And they will stop it in time. You will find that. That's on the agenda. It's not a case of Will they end Ireland's corporate tax regime? It's when. That's what a case is. So those of you who say, so that one is a really, that should be the number one. But the number one reason that Ireland should leave the EU is the EU doesn't give a fuck about any states other than Germany and France. It is a Franco-Prussian bloc. And if you don't believe me, you look what happened in 2008 during the banking crisis. The three countries that suffered the most, now Ireland was hit, but we were the richest of the three of them. Of the four countries that were hit, we were the richest. So we were able to pay our way out of it. You look what happened to Greece, Spain, and Portugal. They were, in the United States, if a state went into great financial trouble, the federal government will go and help it out. In the European Union, the so-called United States of Europe, when Portugal, Greece, or Spain was in trouble, the EU were like, pay up. So there's no protection for member states unless they're France and Germany. None. They've made that perfectly clear. This is the main reason why the British left, is a Franco-Prussian bloc. That's it. And it's based on the same people. When the Third Reich invaded France, the French and the Third Reich were like this. Don't kid yourself, the French resistance. That was a tiny, tiny thing. All French business, not even in Vichy France, but in occupied France, they were never happier than working with the Germans. They were basically, the Third Reich had basically become a Germanic Franco operation. The French businesses, you want to talk about war profiteers, the French businesses and manufacturers were number one. Number one. So that was continued with the European Coal and Steel Union after the end of the war, and it continued on to the very day with a Franco. It's a French, they don't care about the other countries. They will only care about the other countries when it makes their European project look bad, which happened in 2008. Before Ireland exits the EU, the first thing that must happen is Ireland must exit the euro and return to the punt. We can set our own balance of payments. The economy would probably thrive much more. It would no way affect any of the foreign investment here because most of it is American. So why would Americans leave when it's not most of our American companies? Now, they say, Ireland would be isolated if we left. No, we wouldn't. We would return to the Anglosphere. Ireland's traditional culture is with the and trading links and everything else is the United States, UK, and the rest of the Anglosphere. It's not Lower Saxony, It's not Alsace-Lorraine. And this is the thing, and this is the issue here, okay? Ireland and the UK and Ireland already has an Anglo-Irish agreement that goes back to the 1930s, where it's a trading bloc, a trade zone that supersedes actually European treaties, by the way, and thank God it exists. But there's the answer. Ireland would not be suddenly in the wilderness. England is out of the EU, and so is the United States. Instantaneously, we would have those markets in Canada and the rest of the Anglosphere. Problem solved. That's not an issue at all. What do we sell to Greece that we can't sell to Scotland? Oh, well, not Scotland, but we can't sell to, Yorkshire. What do we sell to Slovenia that we can't sell to Minnesota? It's ridiculous. This argument is ridiculous. Plus the fact that we set our own interest rates, our own balance of payments, and have a proper national banking system. But the EU is not the main problem. The euro, the currency, is the problem. It is set. It's basically every policy is set by the the actual German ministries. They're set by them. Now, the German Interior Minister said we are at war with Russia. Suddenly, I'm hearing Irish politicians a few weeks later saying we are at war with Russia. What? Excuse me. And this book, in very clear detail, really lays out how we've got to go. Not only the union, but the whole thing. Because when within Europe, the European Union gets into trouble, unless it's France or Germany, you're left to die. They left Spain to die. They left Greece to die. They left Portugal to die. Ireland only survived because we had all these foreign corporations here and we were richer than all of them. But otherwise, we would have got the same shit. You go to Portugal, the wages are terrible. Now, the whole thing of the European Union was to harmonise all the economies. And the euro was to harmonise all the economies. You go to other European countries outside, say, outside or the Scandinavian countries in the EU, Ireland, Germany and France, the pay is terrible. Terrible. And, this, you know, you can't, that's why so many of them come here, because you can actually, even though it's expensive here, you can still save. It's dreadful, the pay that they get out in these countries. So it's like, okay, why isn't someone in Porto, in Portugal, or in Yanina, in Greece, getting paid the same as someone in Stuttgart or Luxembourg? It's a class system. The EU is a class system. And it's, if you're not from the Franco-Prussian alliance, well, you're on your own. You have member states that pay in, and member states that are recipients. Ireland was a recipient for a long time, and now Ireland pays in. So basically, the rule basically goes: the rich countries pay in, and the poor countries don't pay. But at the same time, too, they don't get any protection. So, I mean, how is that harmonisation? If anything, all the countries should be all paying into the kitty together. And when one runs into financial trouble, which theoretically, they're not supposed to under the Eurozone, but for some reason, they did in Ireland, France, Spain, Portugal, and Greece, which wasn't supposed to happen. Let me explain how stupid the whole thing is. Could you imagine in the United States, Maine, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, and Nebraska defaulted? They had economic problems, and they say, we're okay, we're in the dollar zone. And the people say, yeah, it's okay, they're in the dollar zone. They're all part of the United States Federal Reserve. No problem. What happens in Europe? Greece, Ireland, Spain, Portugal run into trouble in 2008. And what does the European Central Bank say? You're on your own. So what is even the point of being in the European Union? Unless you're a bureaucrat, a politician. Like, you look at the Irish politicians that are in the EU, they don't even know Ireland exists anymore. If they're kind of like anyway angry, they're fighting for Palestinians. Why did the EU shut down Irish solid fuel stations, power stations, using peat, and tell them to burn coconut shells from Africa instead? Why did the EU shut down the Irish sugar beet industry and tell them to import sugar from the Caribbean? If it's a European trading union, it's not. It's not. The way I see it right now, there's absolutely zero advantage for this nation to be in the European Union. And Britain did not end up in the sewer after it left. It continued on as normal. And there isn't, the Irish, the only person you'll meet in Ireland that are rabidly pro-EU are people who get EU junkets, civil servants, bureaucrats, politicians. Everyone else doesn't really think about it. It's just assumed they should be here. But yet, when Ireland, what they call the pigs, the four nations collapsed economically in 2008, we were left on our own. In fact, the EU even punished us. And Ireland had to end up paying the German debt. What? And pay up, Paddy. We should not be in the EU. Forget all the sort of like things of sovereignty and nationalism and all that stuff. I'm not saying that stuff's not important, but they were the arguments used in the past. In basic economic common sense, it's crazy to be a part of it. And we have no protection. You know what it's like being in the EU? Your country is if you're not France or Germany, you're in the EU, right? It's like a couple who moves into your house. right? And they say, okay, we'll help you run your home. Just say, Madame France and Herr Germany, right? They move in. And they go, we're here to help, we'll help you run your home. Don't worry about it. And what they do is they eat your food. They order you around. They bring their friends over from other countries and other places that live in your house. And then when you start having money problems because of the budgets that they imposed upon you, they say, oh, you're on your own now and leave. We'll be back though when you get yourself sorted out again. That's the EU. That's why we should leave. And you know me, I'm not politically motivated really or anything, but I am going to right now use this video to begin Ireland's removal from the European Union. I'm now putting my cards firmly on the table. Ireland must, as a matter of survival as a nation, leave the European Union. And we must understand that the only ones who want to keep us in are the Orwellian inner and outer parties of the government and the civil service. Other than that, no one cares. The big American corporations and all the other pharmaceuticals, they won't care. It's just business for them. In fact, they might even like it better. We don't have to deal with open borders anymore. We can define our nation as an actual frontier. It's over. It's done. We have to leave. It's over. But just like it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time from when we leave the EU. From this moment now, in my heart, from this moment on, the European Union has left Ireland. It's only a matter of formality at this point. And anyone who can offer, your comments are open below. If you can offer a real reason why we should stay in the European Union. Now, of course, I'm not talking about we might have to be a little bit of hardship. That's okay. I understand that. But if you can point out a genuine catastrophic, and not hyperbole, not based on something you read in the Sunday Business Post written by a bureaucrat, if you can put down in words a viable reason why Ireland leaving the European Union will be a catastrophe, please do so, because I'd like to hear that. Because the way I see it right now, at the worst, it would be a bit iffy for a while, but then things would be absolutely the same, and even worse, and you would not have to deal with open borders. You would not have to deal, at least when you went down you were on your own. You were on your own. You see, if you're on your own and you have your own currency, you can suddenly negotiate your balance of payments and your interest rates. You can suddenly change the value of your currency to help you deal with this, right? As it stands right now, Ireland goes down, or any country in the European Union, except for France and Germany, goes down. It's like, bye. And you don't have the mechanisms to deal with it. Explain to me why Ireland shouldn't leave the European Union. To me, it's a no-brainer that we'd be mad if we stayed in.